and strategy for IG Wealth Management.
Hi, my name is Michael Hinton. I'm a management consultant.
Hi, I'm Anita Kanan. I am the Vice President and Partner of the Unknown Creative Agency.
Nice to meet you all. When you're ready.
Judges, I love ice skating. And what I love the most about ice skating is that it's exhilarating. When you're on the ice and you skate, you feel like you can fly. But maybe the most curious thing about skating is that the harder you try sometimes, the worse you may be. And the reason for that is people try too hard, they come up, and then they lose their balance. What they really do need sometimes is to bend their knees and let someone push them in the back as they glide. At Nesto Cloud, you do exactly that for financial institutions as they glide their way through their mortgage lending solutions. My name is Tyler, and here with my colleagues, Jorge, Alex, and Peter at Compass Consulting, we are here to guide you from insight to impact. Our mandate today is to provide you with a strategy for Nesto Cloud to grow as an ecosystem growth platform. The three questions that we asked ourselves today are: what internal structure enables Nesto Cloud to grow their platform? How can Nesto Cloud create a B2B sales strategy to sell this platform? And how can Nesto Cloud create a post-sales servicing plan for their clients? Our one-year strategy, Reaching the Clouds, is about establishing Nesto Cloud as Canada's premier digital lending solution for financial institutions. Through our three-phase strategy, we will create $1.4 million in incremental revenue, 152 new customers, and we will ensure that you can create lasting relationships with your financial institutions. So let's look into how Nesto Cloud works, and to do that, I'm going to pass it to Alex.
Thank you, Tyler. So the very first thing that we wanted to do was take a look at the key players within the industry. So taking a look at the biggest three, first of all, the credit unions. They've seen a 22% increase in market shares in the last few years, and they're starting to take up the place that traditional banks were taking up before. For traditional banks, they obviously they have the debt for 80% of the residential mortgages in Canada, and they're having to play catch up for technology adoption since alternative lenders and credit unions have started adopting technology more aggressively. And lastly, alternative lenders, 47% are concerned about renewing mortgage, so they're looking for alternative option. But alternative lenders offer higher rates, which is not aligned with Nesto Cloud. That is why we believe today Cloud Nesto must target traditional banks to go forward. We then asked ourselves, how does Cloud Nesto differentiate themselves from other players within the industry? Now, the key advantages for Nesto Cloud, first of all, is that it reduces operational costs to financial institutions. Secondly, it offers a single platform where all players can interact, from advisors to underwriters. And lastly, its modular offering allows it to be adaptable and facilitates integration. But the truth is that these three things are offered by all competitors. The key differentiating factor for Cloud Nesto is that it has a large ecosystem, and it has to leverage that. Just a few years ago, we saw the acquisition of CMLS Financial, and it needs to use that to its advantage. So the key here, and what I want you to take away, is that Nesto Cloud needs to target traditional banks and leverage its ecosystem to do so. We then asked ourselves, what's the best way to target these traditional banks? Now, we identified two key challenges. First of all, they're not enticed to switch technology providers. It can be costly. And also, there's regulatory risk associated with switching. Now, we had our key decision criteria. First of all, being able to communicate trust to these partners. And we also took account the stakeholder size of these players. So we took a look at two different strategies. First of all, a more customer-centric approach, meaning that it's a top-down approach, meeting executives face-to-face, and it's key for smaller target size where quality is preferred over quantity. We also looked at a volume-centered approach which focuses heavily on digital advertising and is key to reach mass markets. But today, we believe that a customer-centric approach is the right way forward, and it needs to adapt this approach to target traditional banks. We then asked ourselves, or we looked rather at the technology adoptions within companies, but also for the end customer. So within companies, we see that 47% of C-suite executives admit that they are unprepared for the rapid rate of technological change. On top of that, 25% of organizations have employees who believe managing change is a major strength of senior leaders. This is a problem because 25% of respondents say that their leaders inspire and engage effectively. And that number is tragically low, and there needs to be, or this is an opportunity for Cloud Nesto to step in and act as that change management player. Now, on the end user adoption side, we saw that 75% of new users abandon a sales as a service, sales as a software product within the first week if the onboarding experience is poor. Why does this matter? Nesto Cloud has the opportunity to provide change management support to new and existing clients within its portfolio. So the key here is that Nesto Cloud needs to offer a comprehensive change management solution to its potential clients. Now, to go through everything that's been said today, let's take a look at our customer journey. These are the traditional banks. There's 75 in Canada. They represent 80% of all mortgages. And one thing that's key to note down is that the Big Six owns 90% of all the assets. Now, looking at their three biggest pain points, first of all, data security. More than anything, traditional banks need a solution that prioritizes data security. Next, seeking and retaining leads. With the rapid changing market, banks are looking for new ways to seek and retain these new leads. And lastly, they need a seamless integration that offers a solution that is really not complicated to put forward. So the key here is that Nesto Cloud needs to address its target customers' pain points, first of all, by prioritizing data security. This could take the form of leveraging the proven track success it already has with players like IG Wealth or IA Financial. It also needs to help with building leads and retaining them, and putting forward a change management solution that is comprehensive. Now, through this analysis, we've shown you what to do. Now, we'll show you how. And for that, I'll pass it to Jorge.
Thank you, Alex. So now, as my Tyler colleague explained, to skate properly and seamlessly, you need to find a right partner to push you in a partner that you know you can trust and that he won't let you down. So that is how we reach to the clouds, by integrating these three pillars of our strategy. Making sure that the messaging of who's gonna help you skate well goes throughout. So first, we need to create new tools to provide these new financial institutions and prepare them for what next comes into the pitch, to highlight how well you integrate and how much of a trusted partner you can be, and how well you can help them integrate with your system. And finally, how you can establish change and customer relations so that in the long term you can scale further. So now, in order to do this, Tyler, how are you going to do this?
Nesto Cloud has a vast ecosystem that allows it to really serve many different types of customers in the mortgage lending payment solution. However, if they want to target the financial institutions, it's important that they provide security and compliance and customer acquisition analytics that will help these financial institutions do their jobs better. Part of the concern for them is that they might not have the range of services and the analytics with their AI that will help them to make the proper decisions as a financial institution. How are you going to do this? Through a dashboard that is going to detect threats and opportunities in the long run. Any service can provide it for right now, but you want to make sure that you can provide it as the financial institutions begin to evolve and have to adapt to different market needs. Now, why are your customers going to use this? Because financial institutions prioritize knowing who can touch, see, and modify their sensitive data. Your priority and your emphasis on data security must be doubled down on to make sure that these financial institutions trust you with their sensitive data. As well, they need the analytical insights to aggressively expand their customers. As you know, and through the case that was provided to us, these 6 financial institutions that lead the Canadian market are aggressively pursuing growth. And they want to see how they can capture more of the market, and you have to do that by showing them how your insights are going to help them. Now, let's take a look at what this dashboard will look like. The Nesto Cloud dashboard will detect insider threats, data breaches, and potential security threats. When insider threats come in, which are a evolving threat within the data security realm, it's important that your Nesto Cloud dashboard is able to identify that and detect exactly who it is, how they've breached the data, and what they have access to. Additionally, you are going to provide the insights that will allow the financial institutions to understand where threats are coming from, now and in the future. This is about providing the insights that will help them understand where data security is going and how new hackers are coming in to steal this data. And finally, understanding with your analytics where you are at threat and where you are secure. By providing these insights through and intensively, you will be able to give them the peace of mind that they are protected. Now, with the analytical insights for their customer outreach, it's important that you provide the details and also the numbers that will help them understand where they can get this help. So your dashboard needs to leverage Nesto's existing AI capabilities, for example, with CMLS's residential capabilities in customer acquisition. By leveraging the full family and suite of Nesto, you are able to truly bring in the right analytics and AI capabilities that will help provide the right insights. We also want you to prioritize a customer-friendly interface with one-line insights and analytic-driven reports, where the people who are understanding this data can integrate it as quickly as possible into their operations. Now, this may seem ambitious, but let's show you why this works. Financial institutions are actively seeking data compliance platforms that will help them understand in easy-to-see ways how their data security and compliance is working. It's top of mind for any financial institution, and they're looking to companies such as Varonis who can do exactly what your dashboard can do, but integrate it into your own services. So now let's look into how you are going to sell this pitch to the financial institutions, and there is no one better to sell you on something than Jorge.
Thank you so much, Tyler. So, in order to do this, first let's see inside this bank, who are we speaking to right now? So, your B2B sales funnel starts from the top. So right at the top, we have an executive. He, or can be an example, head of mortgages. He right now mostly needs to modernize technologies because there are new regulations coming in 2026. And in order to do this, he needs someone he can trust and something that won't have any risk for his company. He needs to address his pain points in a way that has no risks, and we can do this by high social proof. So what we want to share with him is concrete results, testimonials, or case studies. It's not involved about the technicalities of it, but how this is going to solve his problems. So looking at this, how the pitch will go is that he wants to reduce uncertainty and mitigate all the risks when he's going to make a decision for his company. So, for example, we can have a testimonial of our judge right here in the middle. He's from IG Wealth, and he can talk about how Nesto's white label digital mortgage platform has helped his company in order to reduce credit risk and turnaround times. And all these datable and quantitative facts can help the executive see how this has helped other businesses and understand that this is a trusted partner in the industry and that this is not a risk for him. So looking at what he earns from this point, what he needed, what he earns, the new modernized technology, he sees how we explain how it is low effort in which it's easier to scale in the long term, and is a trusted partner in the industry who has proven to solve these pain points for IG Wealth, for example, and he doesn't need to worry about the integration risks because it has a proven track record already. So now, moving from there down on the funnel, we go to the relevant stakeholders of the company. What they need right now is make sure that your system can align with all the regulatory necessities right now, and that it is fast, easy to integrate, no stress, seamless integration. So what you do is a live action demo of data. But what we're going to showcase in this tech demo is exactly how your product can seamlessly integrate with a simulation of their already existing tech infrastructure. Because the value proposition of your product is how easily it is to integrate. So now that we've already proven to the executive how it is trusted, now we can show to the relevant stakeholders how they can realize your system in real time, how this connection is already built. And a real good case study for this is Played, a company of open banking in San Francisco, who did exactly that. They did simulations of data, and then what happened, the result of it to their B2B partners, is that they witnessed how the data moved very easily with no technical risks, and it accelerated the decision. Because by showing the proof, showing and not telling, they were able to accelerate the process and the sales cycle to integrate the product. So by doing this, we can successfully finish the sales pitch. Now let's go into phase 3 of establishing the change.
You've adapted your platform and you've made your sales pitch. For many companies, this is the end of the line. But this is where the trap is. Many AI tech companies fall and can't overcome the hurdle of seamless integration. Seamless integration is about showing the employees at the new customer how the product is going to work. Let's walk through how that can look. What we understand is that any type of change management in AI has to come from the top down. And the reason for that are quite simple. Nearly 50% of all C-suite executives feel unprepared for rapid technological change. If the people at the top of the company aren't able to understand what this new change is, they will not be able to disseminate that information down through the organization. How are you going to do this? You have to conduct AI integration, information, and training with the company's leaders at the forefront. By bringing these people into the information and helping them understand what you're doing with your experts, you are going to allow them to step in and really guide that change through the company with your support. Secondly, we want you to support employees because 70% of employees are resistant to change when they are not adequately trained. By showing that, you can integrate and bring the change to the employees at your new customer's company. You are going to be able to communicate the benefits of the Nesto Cloud platform and dashboard, as well as identify change champions who can drive this change through the organization and train the skills necessary to be able to integrate it in a seamless fashion. And finally, going that extra mile is providing the ongoing support for the institution. They will need the support when things go wrong. This is about providing around-the-clock professional support to help them understand how to solve their current issues, but also provide them with the insights and reports that will help them understand future trends in open banking. So now that we've taken the time to understand why change is going to work, let's understand a little bit about how this is going to help the companies on a day-to-day basis through their integration. When you bring your change management through the top down, you are going to be able to help your leaders distribute the information to the employees, who will then be able to communicate to the customer, who is the final product, who we care about equally as much. And so for the customer, this is about making sure that they are getting peace of mind about their data security, as well as understanding how they can be approached with more personalized offers for their mortgage lending problems and needs. So now, let's look a little bit into our timeline. We are working on a 1-year timeline where phase 1 is all about creating that dashboard and piloting it. The creation of the dashboard will happen in the 1st to 3rd months, and we will pilot the Nesto Cloud dashboard from the 4th month onward into the 8th month. The key milestone here is to make sure that the piloting is successful before it is launched to the customer. In the 2nd phase, this is all about the sales pitch, where we will spend the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th months to really make sure that we are meeting with the right executives, conducting the demos with the stakeholders, and making sure they truly understand what the Nesto Cloud platform does. And in the final phase, this is your change management, where you're going to communicate the change, train the customers for integration, and provide the ongoing support through the end of the year to make sure that they understand how Nesto Cloud works. What you can do beginning tomorrow to make sure that this strategy works is to develop the security dashboard, schedule your meetings with your executives, and prepare your communication integration with the potential clients. So let's look into our impacts, and to do that, we'll hand it off to Peter.
Thank you. Now that Tyler knows how to skate, what's the investment that happened and what's the impact? So just how I didn't overshare on the slides, we didn't want to make sure to overspend in that budget, keeping it down to $875,000, which is the cost of the which is the cost of the salaries and the pitch, as well as KPIs of an incremental revenue of $1.45 million. The majority of the cost being the dashboard, and 157 new customers. For the TAMSAM sum, start off with the Canadian mortgage size, which was $2 trillion. Bring it down to 65% of that coming into market in the next few, and I will open the floor to questions. Thank you.
That is the end of the presentation. We'll now begin a 10-minute Q&A period.
You know, I'll start with the end there with your one-year timeline. Considering that you're saying you're going to target traditional banks as your target audience, how realistic do you think that a one-year turnaround is with a big structure like a traditional bank?
Absolutely. So the one-year timeline is all about reaching the financial institutions. The advantage of working as a SaaS platform is that the integration can happen quicker than with a traditional data center and with a full vertical integration. What the one-year timeline allows you to do is to reach the financial institutions before your competitor. You understand that the SaaS platform for open banking is competitive, and everyone is going to be vying for that top spot. So by accelerating your timeline and making sure you get it done within that year, you can establish yourself as the premier digital lending platform in Canada.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for the presentation. Is there a way that you went very fast at the end on the numbers, but were you presenting maybe we can go back to that slide. And
Yeah, I have some appendix for the financials. I'd be happy to show those.
Is there an assumption on take rate, or the way the revenue is projected for?
Absolutely. So here we have the residential summary that was given to us, as well as the income statement. We were given the software services revenues, as well as the total infrastructure costs. So what we did was we benchmarked the margins here, bringing it down to the net income. So this is the benchmarks for SaaS platforms. And then afterwards, we looked at the TAMSAM sum, which was the $2 trillion market, and then the percentage of mortgages being renewed in 2026 is 65%, and that obtainable market for Canadian banks and fintechs was also mentioned to be 65% of those mortgages renewed. Now, $845 billion is a huge number. This is the transaction size. It's not the revenues that are obtainable here. So going down to the new income statement, the assumptions that were made, so these were the assumptions for the margins, and then the assumptions that were made here for the take rate for the fees. From the previous income statement, we got the fees to be about 0.046%, and so bringing it down, we were able to get the incremental revenue number of users down with this new income statement here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. Which of the delivery model would be the most successful, you believe? So in the case they talk about the SaaS or the end-to-end process transfer, so which one is going to be the most successful for you?
We didn't evaluate that exactly, but let's walk you through our thought process a little bit. The end-to-end model is going to be a little bit more difficult to institute with all of the companies that you're trying to target through the financial institutions, but also through the lower levels of mortgage lending. The modular building blocks are easier to implement with several companies because it allows you to bring in certain parts and then upgrade as you go, which is where an ongoing support is going to help, because perhaps they implement 2 or 3 parts of the service, and then as they go, they need more, let's go and implement more of it. So eventually that can turn into the end-to-end service, but at the beginning we anticipate that it'll be more on the modular blocks and then grow from there.
This is embarrassing. I'm going to ask an extremely simple question. The simple question is, if 70% of employees are resistant to change, if they're inadequately trained, 30% will go along with it. Okay. But in terms of these numbers, what's the actual additional cost that adequate training is going to earn this result of you're going to turn around a lot of employees and get them to be on side with this? What's that actually going to cost?
That's a great question. So here, unfortunately, I don't have that exact number, but I can walk you through the process here. So with the net income difference of, so if you look at the bottom line, sorry, the cost difference.
No problem.
The cost difference.
Take your time.
So the cost difference here is $869,000. So that was from the cost of goods sold as well as the operating costs. So I found that difference here. So it would probably have to be the majority of the cost in order for the change management to get everyone on board. So I would say roughly $300,000, $400,000.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question in regards to your game plan. Basically, in your timelines, you mentioned that you're going to go all in versus going as a pilot with a smaller team to test. And I was wondering, what's your contingency plan going so big with such a traditional bank?
Yes, absolutely. Part of our contingency plan is to make sure that with the new dashboard, we are piloting it on the 3 to 4 month basis to ensure that before you launch it to the financial institution, it is working without the major bugs that may frustrate them in any type of purchase of the product. The rest of the Nesto Cloud platform works extremely well, and it can work on a scalable model to make sure that even for a major financial institution, they are getting the service that they need. However, where we really want to emphasize the pilot is on that new dashboard. That will allow them to see their product and the analytics easier and in digestible ways. Excuse me.
Thank you. Yeah, I just so you showed you talked about the dashboard. You talked about how you need to reach out to executives and then adopt that top line approach. But did you put some thought into how the internal structure at Nesto would need to look like? Like, what does the sales team need to look like in order to achieve those goals?
Yes, absolutely. Nesto Cloud has the internal structure that we feel can complement this type of integration. They already provide the outreach in their co-marketing integration with their existing customers to be able to do what the sales pitch and be able to acquire the customers that the financial institutions are looking for. This is why a major internal shift is not the approach that we're trying to take, because we want to integrate small processes within their operations that will allow them to stay with their model but grow into a bigger market with bigger players.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe slide 8 or something like that, it talks about the ecosystem. So take advantage of the ecosystem of the financial institutions. What is the ecosystem that you are taking advantage of?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if brokers, for example, is part of that.
Right, so the really key player that we wanted to leverage really came through in phase 1 when Tyler was talking about the dashboard. What we want to leverage, first of all, is the AI capabilities of those institutions. So I think it was CMLS Financial. We know they're a big player. Another thing too was making sure that since data security is top of mind for these traditional banks, leveraging the experience that other players like CMLS have, and then incorporating that into the dashboard will give more trust and confidence to these big players to let them know that they are indeed following the regulatory compliance that they need to.
Thank you.
So, you talk, if I look at one of the first slides in the impacts, you say 700 and something clients, new customers, and then 157. But and you see you're targeting the banks, right? You go with the conventional bank. So which banks? Have you deep dive into the opportunities? Like which of these banks would be your first go-to client or prospect? Who is your prospect?
So one of the things that we understood through our research, we didn't get to look exactly into which of these 6 banks is most profitable or would be the greatest opportunity. But we got to look into which ones perhaps you wouldn't want to explore right away. For example, Scotiabank has already established their initiatives for open banking, which means that going to a company that already perhaps has the partners to integrate into an open banking solution may not be where you want to target. However, we understand that the other 5 financial institutions are aggressively looking to grow in open banking, and they're looking into ways to acquire or perhaps develop solutions for their open banking strategies, which is why we feel like targeting these 5 open banks are the best way to go.
All right, thank you. The Q&A is now over. I will now ask everyone to please leave the room.
I'm Mason.
Denise, and I think you're
How's it going, Mason?
Francesca. Nice to meet you.
How's it going, guys?
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Michael. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, I'm Mason. Michael. Julia. Yusuf. Hi, Michael. Yusuf.
Alright. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Axel, and I will be your timekeeper for the day. Before we continue, I'd just like to confirm that this is in fact Team B. I will show you your warning signs when there are 10, 5, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds remaining, like so. Once the 10-second countdown is up, I will say stop, after which the team must stop talking immediately, and afterwards a 10-minute Q&A period will follow. I would like to remind you that all teams must present for a minimum of 15 minutes, and all team members must speak during the presentation, but not necessarily during the Q&A period. Audience members, we ask that you please place your phones on silent mode and remain seated in the room for the duration of the full presentation and the Q&A period. I will now let the judges introduce themselves. Once they are done, you may begin your presentation. Off to the judges.
Hi guys, my name is Yusuf. I work at Air Canada in procurement.
Yes, hello. My name is Julian Chacon. I work at procurement for Pratt Whitney Canada.
My name is Bernard. I work in strategy at IG Wealth Management.
My name is Michael Hinton. I'm a management consultant. I don't work for Oliver Consulting.
I'm Renita Kanan. I'm the Vice President and Partner for the Unknown Creative Agency.
Well, it's nice to meet you all. Thank you for being with us today. We are Oliver Consulting. I am Francesca. This is Mason. We also have Casey and Michael. And today we'll be talking to you about how we're really standing on the edge of tomorrow with Nesto. We're going to be leveraging digital twins to revolutionize the lending landscape. We'll walk you through a bit of a situational analysis we've done, high level what our strategy is, how are we going to implement this strategy, and then our bottom line. So first, into our situation.
Yeah, hi guys. First, we want to outline the current task situation that we've outlined. And we know with Nesto Cloud, we were founded in 2018 after the series of $80 million in Series C funding. Additionally, we see that 65% of the Canadian mortgages are renewed in 2025, are set to renew by the end of 2026. That's a massive shift in the market and something we definitely want to outline. Additionally, changed regulation by OSFI allows for reduced switching costs between lenders and gives significant opportunity to this market. Now the question we were here today to ask is how should we grow Nesto Cloud as an ecosystem growth platform? And that's a loaded question, but today we're going to do that by offering digital twins, B2B sales, and internal structure. We'll break into a little bit more of what that looks like and use these key performance indicators to outline how we plan to track our performance across these sectors. Next, we want to look at a big picture overview of our industry. And what that first looks like is growing. First and foremost, it's a very digital shift. We see a 28% growth rate in the software and banking by 2030. Definitely positions ourselves as a great place to be for growing and gaining more market share. There's a tech-driven approach into this market, and additionally, as mentioned before, the low switching costs with the changing regulations. Some other industry KPIs that I want to outline are 8% mortgage originations in fintech, as well as 70% of loans issued by financial institutions are mortgages. So there is a very high percentage of total institutions that are offering loans being specific to mortgages. So this is very much where we want to position ourselves. The key takeaways here is there is immense opportunity to grow within the current market. Next, I'm going to pass things off to Casey to Michael to do a competitive analysis.
So looking around us, kind of the other players on the field, we're some of the newer players coming in 2018 after our funding. We have Encino, who is mostly in small business. They're our closest competitor as far as size. And then we also have ICE and Compass. They work more in document management and automated compliance. And then we also have Q2 Cloud Lending. They're more of like a life cycle for lending and leasing. They kind of walk everybody through it. They're more of a niche focus than we have. These are more of the big players we're looking at.
Now we're going to move into our differentiating factor. So really what makes Nesto Cloud different? The main things that we've outlined here is that agentic AI capability. A lot of these players in the team are using it. However, another thing is this regulatory landscape. This is always changing, and it's super important for this to be Nesto Cloud's differentiator. And we see this regulatory landscape changing, and it's important to remain flexible. And an example of this would be Bill 96. So Bill 96 is the French requirement for the Quebec businesses to be French-facing internally and externally. So with Nesto Cloud's already regulatory framework, that differentiator, they would be able to harness this more than other competitors. Due to that agentic AI, it would allow for more easy translation. So now that we've identified this differentiator, this also impacts the consumer and the customer. And I'll hand it off to Fran to tell you a little bit more about that.
So we're seeing the customers really need to be thinking about the changing regulation, but also how are they implementing these services. So when we're going through who our customer is, we need to look at our influencer, our acquirer, and our user. So our influencer first will be the head of mortgages for one of these banks that's using Nesto. They're going to want to see new technology, they want to see growth, they're really concerned with the top line. The person who acquires it is probably the CFO. It's at the request of the influencer. They will purchase the service. But then the person that we really care about, not only we're selling to the influencer, but we really want the user experience to be solid. And they will be leveraging the platform for their specific need when they're in the banking industry. And so what do these customers care about through our influencer all the way to our user? What are their main pain points? They care a lot about securing renewals. We're seeing there's a very high mortgage turnover. 65% of Canadian consumers, their mortgages are up for renewal between 2025 and 2026. This is about 1 to 1.2 million consumers. And so we really want to see those people coming to Nesto's clients. Next, technology integration. Tech is continuously changing. We all know this fact. And so this is increasingly important so they don't fall behind the curve. Finally, compliance. We have French regulation and all of these other things that are impacting. And so we are looking to help these banks grow by securing their renewals, keeping them up to date on the tech, and making sure they don't fall behind on regulatory compliance.
So where we are currently, we're currently very high growth, working mostly in B2B business, as we said, through mortgage technology. But our AI technology is increasing 38 times in the future. 1 million Canadian households are up for renewal, as Fran had said, and the market for digital twin technology is at a compound annual growth rate of about 65%. What we can take away from this is we've already established ourselves as a strong fintech player, but now we need to grow and diversify with changing technology.
Next leads us into some of the strategic options that we've considered. So the first being, we could do nothing. Obviously the market is growing, and Nesto Cloud being a main player, they could harness this growth. However, that's incredibly risky, as there's many changing things, as I said, and other competitors are also moving up throughout the industry, so it overall wouldn't be the best call. The next being strategic partnerships. So Nesto Cloud can create these partnerships, possibly acquire another company. However, that leaves a lot of reputational risk, as if the reputation of one company falters, that can also affect Nesto Cloud, thus not leading to high enough growth. And lastly, what we've decided to go with is new technology. So pivoting into that digital twin architecture to make sure that it would diversify revenues and increase trust with these financial institutions. So now we're going to move on to our full strategy.
Yeah, so we want to outline our entire strategy because it's multifaceted. It's going to begin with this new technology that we outlined, being digital twins. And it's going to break into how we can leverage this new technology into more sales. And finally, we also need to evaluate how this impacts our internal structure, our HR, our job design, and how we can improve the culture that we have internally. Let's break into how we're going to implement these strategies. Obviously, first we're going to break into the digital aspects with the digital twins. Now, digital twins is a bit of a new technology that we've seen in the market. And it's very, very innovative for what it has going on, but we're going to break into what it is so you guys can get up to speed. First, digital twins are the virtual replicas of physical assets, various types of data, computer systems, and processes that are using data in real time. And the best part about digital twins is the replication of this data that anonymizes it. So obviously data governance and data policies are extremely important and extremely relevant in the current state of our world. And we want to ensure that we're upholding these regulations and ensuring that we're protecting not only our customers but ourselves from legal replications. Now, that being said, with digital twins, they can be data-driven decisions, cost reductions, faster innovations, and operational efficiencies that can impact our business. And we're going to break into how specifically we can do that. But first, we have to outline some other key aspects that are outlined within digital twins, being the ghost twin and the closed garden. The closed garden aspect is similar to what I just mentioned about the anonymized data, that it's going to be very protected, but it still allows for the full-time visibility and the key takeaways from that data that we've collected. So it's a very safe and mature method for us to store our data and also be able to take away key customer information that can then be used to drive revenue in various fashions that we'll touch on later. The Ghost Twins are going to refer to a model that exists but is not properly connected to real-time data or active decision-making systems, which protects our model. Now, how does this connect to our previous systems of agentic AI? This is a multifaceted system beginning with perception, reasoning, into action, learning, and then to our customer. So that first takes in all of the data, the perception, and connecting and ingesting that, and that's just going to take it in mass quantities, as we previously mentioned, and that's going to be the agentic AI aspect that's pulling in all this data. And then the reasoning is where we see these various different agents analyzing the data and pulling the key takeaways we want. And then we have the action where we're extracting insights and making these changes. And that follows with the learning and the feedback loops that we want to implement into this final system. Now, how does this improve our current operating system with the connection of digital twins and agentic AI? Now, there's a few different ways we do this within Nesto Cloud. It's going to be from automation to autonomous, and a big part of that is keeping the human in the loop. And that's a big fact we want to outline, is the human is continuously in the loop in a lot of these processes, and that is very highly cost effective. So we want to remove the human from the loop. We want to allow these autonomous processes to run simultaneously, and we can allow our internal staff, which we'll touch on later, to focus on higher priority decisions that don't require continuous monitoring. And we'll ensure we do this with the digital twin safe interspace that we outlined earlier with the closed garden. Next, we also have key operational improvements, which is going to improve personalization for our customer and allow for the enablement of systems to anticipate needs and have this pre-active maintenance. And then the final thing that we've outlined as a huge benefit for our company is the revenue driver from data analysis to real-time simulation. And being able to pull real-time data into actionable insights is invaluable. And you guys probably know this, being in the consulting industry, how much different data is important to our executives. So we want to pull this out and also offer this as a revenue driver to our current customers, and also offer it to our new customers that we're going to be growing into. And Fran's going to touch on that more now with our B2B sales.
Yes. So here's the value proposition. We have this very robust SaaS. We're growing, and Nesto is doing very well. But we are seeing an opportunity to be selling digital twins. There's a lot of data that we're collecting when we have so many clients, many banks, all of their mortgage consumers. We have all of their information. We can replicate this, turn them into digital twins, and be able to leverage this, sell it as predictive data. So here, first, for our customer, they would not have to build these digital twins predictive systems in-house. We would be able to do that for them. Next, this is a risk mitigation tool. This data can help them simulate, test, validate assumptions, new layouts, software updates. How would this actually run in the real world? Next, it would help with operational efficiency, synthesizing insights, figuring out how to use complex data sets. And finally, it would also enable new business models, fostering the creation of some new revenue streams for us and for our consumers. And so when we're selling this value prop, we need to think, how do we actually go out and interface with our customer? First, we're going through account-based sales. Then a tailored value prop, which I've briefly touched on, a very consultative, hands-on selling process, because digital twins are new. It's robust, but it's unfamiliar, and so that's something that we really need to be keeping in mind when we're showing our influencer, acquirer, and user how this is really going to play out for them. And then finally, post-sale expansion and referral, and how do we keep our customer in the loop? So here we really want to highlight customization. This is a customized journey towards these core challenges of banking, the regulation issues, compliance, their legacy systems. They have systems in place, but we want to introduce, how do we make this better? So we're going to be targeting, lenders with these pain points and really harnessing word of mouth, because people believe others, and we're trying to differentiate this messaging. Next, we're going to be showing what our value prop is. We can do predictive credit analysis, dynamic portfolio management. We can model consumer behavior, and these are the things that we want to communicate as very valuable when we're trying to sell digital twins. Then this process has to be very hands-on and very consultative. So we're looking at pilots. We need our customer, our potential customer, to have the ability to try this strategy. They're not going to adopt it first. So this is content-led selling, which would be demonstrations or case studies, testimonials, and then also social selling. This kind of comes back to the word of mouth point, where we're trying to build credibility by posting content, which also can, tie into search engines and how to optimize those strategies as well. Finally, we want to be able to expand post-sale and referral. So customer success can be a selling point. Creating video testimonials and really making it sticky, and we would want to be very integral to this. And so we're looking for a curated approach, meet them along the way, and show them what the possibilities are. And then, so your customer buys the digital twins. They're into it. They think that, okay, we want this for our predictive programming. We want to figure out how we can use this to better operationalize. And so we pull this into, how do we interface with them on the back end of the sale? We're going to do very high-touch onboarding and implementation, predictive support powered by our agentic systems, a tiered support structure, and also data security and governance. And so what we're seeing here is that we have our core software offering, but then we also have this new, and this creates a self-reinforcing ecosystem and these network effects.
Now that Fran outlined all of the external factors, let's focus on the internal and overall our human resource structure. So first, how are we going to find these stars that are going to implement digital twins in sales? Well, this starts with a whole job revamp and job design. So first, figuring out what their overall title would be, and mainly the key attributes that will lead them to be successful. Incorporating that into the entire application process, and then moving on towards assessment. How can we assess these skills to make sure that they will be set up for success? And next would be going through those job offers. So making sure that the people that we hire are going to be fully in on the plan and being able to implement the strategy that we just outlined. And lastly, that training aspect. Training and promotion, leading to that high retention and high satisfaction. Letting our employees know that they can improve and grow with us. And next, how are we going to outline the current structure? And this would be making an orchestra. So having these module focuses for these teams where they would be focused on their niche form of study, whatever they specialize in. And then that would lead to more seamless coordination between the entire company to make sure that the agentic AI team knows all of their roles and responsibilities and overall feels more autonomy over it, thus caring more about it. And that would lead to this entire orchestra system for everything to work seamlessly together, allowing for employees to feel fulfilled and the company to move successfully. So next, now that we've outlined our strategy, we're going to move into what this would look like in our implementation timeline. First, starting with the digital twins, we first obviously creating the infrastructure takes about 6 months, moving into that pilot program to make sure that it works efficiently. Next would be to implement it and continuously innovate and improve it over time to make sure that we're never falling behind the curve. Next would be moving into that B2B sales, so targeting those top executives that we think would be beneficial partners. Demonstrating those tools, since it is a new system, to make sure that they fully understand the value that they would get out of this digital twin architecture. Last, continue that relationship, add in that satisfaction, make sure that they are always looking to us for any type of improvement. Then moving on to that internal side, obviously developing that talent acquisition, targeting the right people would take relatively quickly, and making sure that they are continuously training, continuously satisfied.
So now that we've heard from them, I would love to outline some key financial assumptions for you guys. So we estimate that capital expenditures will be around $1.2 million for this project, developing the digital twin and implementing it into our banking with current and new employees. We estimate an internal project discount rate of 17%. The market average is about 12 to 15%, and we've added a 2% buffer. We imagine this project will last about 10 years. With the changing markets, we don't want to stretch it too far. We have a great opportunity now as we are in the growth stage of this product.
This is a newer technology, and this will allow us to capitalize on current events. Now, some of our key costs, this is going to be a $1.5 million total investment, broken down by software development costs, which are lowering, maintenance costs, which are also lowering, hardware, onboarding, and marketing costs. We have a compound annual growth rate of about 22% and an internal rate of return of 29%. Looking at a discount rate of 20% for the project as a total. As I said, the $1.5 million initial investment, and this is a great opportunity with the time of the market to capitalize on lowering costs of software.
Just outlining how we're going to define success. First being customer served being about 1.5 million. It's a growing market, new technology. We believe this is feasible. Next being that data compliance goal of 100%. Although it's quite ambitious, we believe that this is necessary for the trust. Next, that increased employee effectiveness being 20%, taking some mundane tasks off their hands. And lastly being that employee retention of about 96%, ensuring that training and satisfaction.
Yeah, now that we've outlined the key financial and performance indicators that we want to outline, we also want to look at some of the risks that we need to mitigate. And those are firstly going to be changes in the mortgage market, and that's going to be mitigated with the diversification and revenue driving from selling these digital twin data. Additionally, the data privacy, which is also protected with our digital twin infrastructure. And finally, the vulnerabilities in architecture, which we're going to mitigate with our modular focused roles. As you guys can see, we've come today to prove how we can grow Nesto Cloud as an ecosystem growth platform. We appreciate your time today, and we'll take any questions now.
Thank you. We'll now begin a 10-minute Q&A period.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I just, you're talking about creating a digital twin and then targeting various executives and things like that. But what actual customers are you targeting? Did you think of, would you target traditional banks, credit unions? Because I guess they have different procurement structures, and so how did you think about what segment of the banking world would you target?
We were thinking, the digital twin has vast implications because it's script of all personally identifiable information, but you have things that are very granular that can apply to credit unions, that can apply to major banks. This is something that could be useful pretty much everywhere. We were thinking largely major banks. There was a statistic about 65% of mortgages come from the major banks, and so that is probably our first target. But as this grows, we're looking to be able to sell this everywhere, and I think we really can because we have data on mortgages from over 500,000 consumers, and this will only grow because of the network effects. As we gain more consumers who are doing mortgages with our platform, we can also then sell more of that data, and so it's a self-reinforcing loop.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. From the revenue perspective, if you go more micro, what is your assumption on take rate on this initiative?
I'm sorry, what rate?
So how are you realizing revenue? More in the micro level. So
So on the day-to-day, when through digital twins we can sell more data, which helps a lot as a second source of revenue, but as well with the efficiency of it, we can boost how many mortgages are under our control, allowing us to grow faster and take more revenue from other banks.
thank you.
Sorry, I have another one for you. So you talk about a 22% CAGR, and you say earlier in the presentation that the industry is growing at 65% CAGR. So how do you justify being so under the CAGR? So you're going to lose market share.
Yes, sir. We are the first in this industry so far. Mostly it's used in automotive and engineering. As we enter this new market, there's a little bit of uncertainty of when we enter, can we capture as much as possible? The CAGR is more of a conservative number for us as we look to expand and capture as much of that as possible.
I really liked the slide that you put up, in which you did a competitive analysis of the competition facing Nesto Cloud. To ask a cheeky question, if you're going to do the same for yourselves, how would you match up relative to the other possible consulting firms that Nesto could work with?
Well, Nesto's in a great spot because the fact that they already collect so much data. Most of their facilities are already set up, so the transition to selling this data as revenue is much quicker. Whereas these other facilities do not have as much a focus on collection of data.
Like, let me push you just a little bit. Let's say we weren't making a presentation, and you're deciding who you're going to sell to. Why are you going to Nesto rather than Cloud Lending or Encino? In other words, why do you want to work with Nesto? What's Nesto got?
I think some of the key elements that stand out about Nesto is what they're currently operating on. And we've already seen this agentic AI that they're using very efficiently, and that's really servicing their customers at a very high level. So I think that's a big aspect. And apart from that, not only just the data collection that we talked about that allows us to implement these digital twins, I think also just the structure of the organization with the regulatory landscape allows us to be way more agile. It allows us to be preventative of any different legislation that may come into effect, any data governance policies that could affect our policies. So it, again, it allows us to be more agile and adapt to various different scenarios.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. So if I'm a CTO of a big bank and I'm pro in-house build versus buy, okay, what's your strongest strategic argument to prove me wrong?
I would say from a timeline perspective and an initial investment perspective. It might be valuable to have this technology in-house, but realistically, we're seeing tech change so quickly, and you could put a lot of money into building these capabilities in-house. It's a lot of hardware and a lot of software, and a lot of time, a lot of reskilling of your employees, and maybe 10 years down the line, you don't actually want this service anymore, and it might seem really good today, but when you're looking into the long term, I would say if you want to be as agile as possible, you would want the ability to pivot, and we would give you the ability to pivot. And that could also seem like a weakness for us in the fact that the landscape is changing so much, and we want to tap into this digital twin landscape. But something that we really care about, as Mason just said, is being agile. And so we're seeing this digital twin trend happen right now. We want to capitalize on it right now, but that doesn't mean we have blinders on and that we're not looking to whatever possibilities are out there. And we're just got some Series C funding, and we're looking to expand and grow, and we're talking about that.
I have a follow-up question on the data. I think is it fair to say that one of your main assumptions is that the data that you actually collect through your clients actually belongs to Nesto versus belonging to the banks? And so my follow-up question to that would be, how do you acquire that data from the banks if the banks is not willing to let you use that data to better your product?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because that's definitely a risk that could impact our process. And I think the biggest thing for that will be during the development, we'll have to implement that process into our software system that we're giving to the banks. So there's kind of this mutually beneficial arrangement that we have with the banks, that they're getting the data insights too. And that's really one of the biggest factors behind this digital twins, is not only are we giving the protection and the continued service of our SaaS that we've already been offering, we're also offering the data insights to them. So it's a shared data collection policy that we are allowing them to have immense visibility on all of their customers, how they can drive their revenue, how they can drive their sales and acquire new customers based on various different aspects in terms of the mortgage loaning that they're already seeing now on a large scale without breaching the confidentiality. But also in the same time, we are being able to visualize this data too and improve our process as a whole as a company. So it's mutually beneficial, and the banks, the way we would orchestrate this to them is that by having visibility on data from both sides, their end and our end, we can both benefit the process. So we can improve our software to better suit them in that instance. So that's ultimately how we have to sell that to ensure that we can mitigate that risk.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I guess your focus is on digital twins. It's very clear. It goes over and over on the presentation and your delivery. If you go to slide 35 and 36, we're also showing the strategy and the structure and how you're going to the orchestration aspect, and that's very clear. But what is your punctual suggestion on the organizational structure? So what is the talent that you are going to seek to maintain?
Yes, so obviously we want to maintain the highest quality to make sure that these people that we are bringing in, if it be internally or externally, are all in on this plan and have the tools available to make sure that this is successful. So regarding that digital twin, we would prefer to recruit and assess those individuals that already have existing skills, and then build upon those skills to make sure that we train them and we promote them for this specific architecture that we would be developing.
Are you going to have a different strategy for banks, like big banks versus brokers?
I think what we're looking at primarily is to drill into big banks starting. I think that, I mentioned that there's a possibility to cast a very wide net, but I think that we might be remiss to start by casting a very wide net. I think the first step is drill into the banks, offer this large amount of data, specific actionable insights that they can be taking, and then move to brokers in the future, because there's a risk that if we go too wide, we could maybe overshoot, and we want to make sure that we're drilling into where we need to be.
Okay, thank you. The Q&A period is now up. Thank you, delegates and judges, for your participation. I'll now ask everyone to please leave the room. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the questions.
Thank you very much. How big is your procurement team? Oh, this is just about Canada. So how do you get specialized? Like, everyone has a commodity?
So if I Google it, I find it.
Yes, you have to. You have to go. You have to check out our website.
So like every procurement person that grad is like super specialized in that commodity.
So is that a play on work or what? That's your
coordination people going to other
need to go teams.
what it is sometimes
Other team.
specialties like regular procurement.
I don't do this through
That's so hard from one going from one to the other.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of
help.
movement.
It didn't help. There was not. There is more now because there is integration.
Okay.
Maybe different.
That picture was taken
I would not organize you. Yeah.
That was a month and a half ago.
Seriously.
I swear.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I can't say anything.
Especially when
Oh, you know Melanie Brett?
Melanie?
You want to leverage, right?
Oh, yeah.
She's part of your relation.
Not very closely. We visit with her. She's a strategist, isn't she? She went solo, I think. She used to be
Yeah,
a
she went
Valtech.
solo. She went leads.
Yeah.
That's exactly. She was a tech and she.
I know Damien the founder very well.
Who?
Damien is the founder.
I don't know Valtech. I know her because she went to Valtech. Yeah, she was. I met her when working in the bank.
Yeah, Valtech is a great they used to be a digital integration solutions that do
It's crazy because we're in the same industry, but you're
digital
so
financial
so
retail
different.
and so forth. But then they were bought
Still
out by
interesting, but I get that.
France. Yeah, and they got really big then.
How big is the unknown?
We're a boutique agency. We are about 21 people. Full-time employees. And we
Are you
have
guys
a
good with
bunch
water?
some more water would be great.
29 full time.
20, no, 20.
Okay,
20.
it's a good size.
It's a good amount for now. I don't think I want to go bigger because right now we were very specific. Myself and my partner made a decision to really restructure the team so we have seniors.
So you want more seniors?
No, I think I want to keep that number and keep it seniors only because the quality of the work and the fast pace, that is so much faster and better. And if I need any supporting hand for any we hire freelancers. So we have some real people that work with us and support us. You should come by our office. We're based in, we have a really nice space in St. Henry.
The team will be coming in now.
See you yeah, on Crookside and right next to all the nice restaurants. Hi! Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
How do you do?
Hi. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
How do you do? Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed their lunch. Now, my name is Axel, and I will be your timekeeper for the day. Now, before we continue, I'd just like to confirm that this team is Team C. I will show you your warning signs when there are 10, 5, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds remaining, like so. And once the 10-second countdown is up, I will say stop, after which the team must stop talking immediately. Afterwards, a 10-minute Q&A period must follow. I would like to remind you that all the teams must present for a minimum of 15 minutes, and all team members must speak during the presentation, but not necessarily during the Q&A period. Audience members, we ask that you please place your phones on silent mode and remain seated in the room for the duration of the full presentation and Q&A period. I will now let the judges introduce themselves, and once they are done, you may begin your presentation. Off to the judges.
Hi, my name is Youssef. I work at Air Canada in procurement. Nice to meet you.
Hi, my name is Julian Chacon. I work at Pratt & Whitney Canada for procurement.
My name is Ben Nosby. I work at IG Wealth Management.
Hi, my name is Michael Hinton. I'm an independent management consultant.
Hi, my name is Anita Kanan. I'm the Vice President and Partner at the creative agency The Unknown.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, judges. My name is Nacha, and today I'm joined by my colleagues Nancy, Purse, and Gen. We are Pinnacle partners, and we're so excited to bring Nesto Cloud to the Pinnacle today. Our key objective was to create a strategy that can facilitate the growth and scale of Nesto Cloud's ecosystem platform. With this objective in mind, we propose 2 key recommendations: build the base and ace your goal, where you can expect to achieve these incredible impacts. But before we get there, let's begin with a situational analysis. To start, we understand that Nesto Cloud has ambitious initiatives to grow. They offer B2B solutions for mortgage lenders, offering them reduced operational costs, improved customer experience, all with seamless integration throughout. With this, we understand that it is their key objective to scale the growth of this platform. Why now? Well, we see that there are several external headwinds that are currently making this growth imperative. For one, regulatory changes. With lower qualification standards for lender switching and extended mortgage lifetime values, there's been an increase in origination opportunities. Furthermore, market forces such as intensifying competition and digital transformation pushes lenders to be more competitive in their mortgage offerings as well, making this an imperative growth opportunity for Nesto Cloud that's vital to capture right now. In order to achieve this growth, we see that there are 2 key questions that Nesto Cloud must address. For one, who to target? Which mortgage lenders should Nesto Cloud target for maximum growth and scale? And secondly, what kind of offering should Nesto Cloud push forward with to capture this target segment? Let's begin with the first question of who to target. Here, we identified 4 key kinds of mortgage lenders in Canada: traditional banks, credit unions, alternative providers, and digital fintech banks. With this, we evaluated these 4 kinds of lenders on 3 criteria: volume/scaling potential, tech adoption urgency, and compliance. From this, we identified traditional banks as the most lucrative segment due to high volume, consistent demand, and also the fact that they face the most pressure to modernize their legacy systems, with many of them currently facing the decision of whether or not they should build or buy their digital infrastructure. We found that the 3 other mortgage lender options do not offer this kind of opportunity. For this, we have successfully answered the first question of who to target. Moving on to what kind of offering should Nesto Cloud push forward with? To answer this question, we first started out by identifying what do these traditional banks really want in the first place. What they want is to modernize their legacy systems for agility. They want security, safety, and control over their processes. And they want to be able to offer maximum benefits back to their customers, aka the borrowers. From here, we mapped out what banks want against what kind of offerings Nesto Cloud can offer, which is their software as a service and their outsourcing model offers. From here, we saw that their software as a service can offer the maximum benefits for lowest risks and has the highest compatibility with the traditional bank's existing ecosystem, as it offers the bank's existing control. However, for the fully outsourced model, we see that it's quite unlikely for big banks to outsource their core, high-margin mortgage origination models. Therefore, we believe that Nesto Cloud should move forward with their software as a service offerings. However, we understand that there are currently some hurdles in attaining and ensuring adoption for this customer segment. For one, banks may see that it may be difficult to change partners and systems. And because they manage massive amounts of confidential data, they're slower to trust. And it's also imperative for us to ensure consistent usage for maximum benefits, which can offer another barrier. And furthermore, we understand that there are other competitors in the landscape, such as IC Encompass and nCino, that offer similar services as well. So in order to combat these barriers, we might already have answered who to target and what kind of model we should move forward with. So the next question is, how exactly can Nesto Cloud bring this strategy to life with all of those barriers in mind? And to answer this, I'm so excited to pass it on to my colleague to tell you more about our strategy. Thank you, Nacha. I hope you guys had a grasp of the picture of what we are supposed to talk about right now, but let's see how we can drive that into action. To start, right now let's identify what are the key penetration area for Nesto Cloud in order to help them thrive and survive amidst these headwinds. So right now, under the growing markets and intensified competitions all around, there are 5 things that traditional banks are looking for. First is increased profit margin.
We want to take more loans in more value, but less operating costs. Second is lower operating time. This is an area where we want to take in more customers with less processing time, either in underwriting, processing, or approving the overall mortgage. This is another area where fintech companies are trying to win over the traditional banks. Not only that because they have a stronger digital infrastructure, but it's because they are more lean, more agile. Third point is that they want to have better data management and handling, in which we want to be able to obtain large amount of customer data and translate and also tailor that into meaningful offerings towards our customers. Another area that fintech companies are currently winning over traditional banks, not because that they have more exposure towards customer data, but it's because they have the tools that help them translate, identify, and help manage these customers to come up with better offerings. Fourth is the resilient solutions under the highly regulated industry. So right now we understand that banking have many expectations for digital products to be integrated, including those SOC Type 2 or ISO standards. And last is the smooth integration of the existing digital infrastructure and also the newly introduced products. If we look into this closely, actually, right now, Nesto Cloud actually can help these banks overcome the headwinds identified throughout these 5 areas. However, when we look into this, the real question still exists: how to make these banks be able to trust and also choose Nesto as their growth enabler, as we have proven our concept to be the valuable option. So I would like to introduce a l'horizon strategy, where we will divide it into 2 initiatives: Build the Base and Ace Your Goal. Where Build the Base, we want to obtain some of the big 6 banks to onboard towards Nesto Cloud. And Ace Your Goal is to manage the internal structure of Nesto Cloud in order to be ready to serve these big 6 bank customers. To start, let's talk about Build the Base first. So I would like to introduce you to someone. Meet Gavin. He's the head of the mortgage department at Scotiabank. Right now, his main job is to plan, direct, and also manage overall business strategy under his mortgage department, and has his team performance tracked based on the financial outcomes. He's the main decision maker for implementing new technologies today. He's working with the tedious, manual, and slow mortgage management system in his office, such as our existing competitors, the ICE and Compass. His bonus and performance are being tracked based on 3 main things. First, the risk management ability he has on hold. Second, the profit generated. And third is coming up with the competitive, great renewal strategies, where we have over 1.2 million Canadian customers at risk of switching under the traditional big 6 banks right now. So, Gavin, what is currently on your mind?
Hey, good morning, judges. So today, as one of the managers in the mortgage, we see that there are rising the customer demand in terms of mortgage loan, both in terms of the new mortgage and also the one that they want to refinance. So after I have looked through all of my customers, there are 3 main things that my customers are looking at. The first one is the price in terms of interest rate. Second one is the flexibilities. And last one is the security and transparency of the initial of the data, what are their personal data. So today, our bank was able to offer all of them. But due to high and huge amount of data, there are certain delays or a hard time and struggle that we need to take each of the customers. So I would like to ask, what are the possible tools that we can use today in order to make all this process faster?
Okay, so this is where we have to step in to prove to Gavin that we are the solutions that he is looking for. So I would like to break it down into 2 areas that we'll be discussing today, including the business model and also the transformation management as a whole. So let's meet how our product should be tailored towards customers like Gavin and also his subordinates in the team. So we would like to integrate the current Nesto Cloud product as a white label product by using the API to integrate back towards the current digital infrastructure that each traditional bank currently have. So we are not branding as Nesto Cloud separately, but instead integrating ourselves back towards the current existing systems. Second, we are promoting the agentic AI models to help and provide underwriting and approval automation, saving up to over 40% of the total time that traditional banks are currently using. With the digital-first renewal journey for customers, we are currently helping banks solving their obvious questions of how to handle these renewals faster so that these customers will not switch towards fintech options. And last is having a flexible product options, either fixed or variable interest rate options being tailored towards each customer with different risk profile. With our current AI integrated system right now, Nesto Cloud to be able to identify each different types of customers towards the bank and come up with tailored products so that upon their renewal or coming up with their new mortgages, customers will get the best options in the market. And second is the transformation management. We understand that the new existing system would be hard to adopt if no one is understanding what they're doing. So one initiative we would like to offer towards Nesto Cloud today is for Nesto Cloud to create Train the Trainer session, where Nesto Cloud invites department leads towards the session, and for these department leads to share their knowledge and how the new system will be working towards their subordinates under their departments, so that we have better adoptions of the system. We expect organization-wide adoption to be done under 1 month. There's a proof of concept of what we're doing this called the Accenture Solutions Train the Trainer model, where the case study could be discussed during the Q&A. So this is now how we should be communicating towards people like Gavin. We are not only provide the tailored products like what we are doing with smaller companies in the past, but we are providing them with actionable insights of how we are trying to reduce the overriding time, lower the origination cost, and last is to deliver the modern digital-first experience with that satisfies end customer demand. So we have satisfied all the stakeholders' benefit, where Nesto can expand into an ecosystem builder. Big 6 banks have more resilience, and also end customers have the superior user experience and also having the most competitive rates available within the market. However, the next question is, how exactly could Nesto Cloud be ready to implement this change together?
So now let's move on to our second strategy, is your group. So as you can see on the screen, what we're planning to do is that we would like to add 2 more new teams, which is pre-sale and post-sales teams. Where pre-sale teams will focus on reaching out to our bank customers and be the one who ensure that they can secure the deals, while the post-sales team is the one who focus to fix the problems in case the unexpected things happens. So, but before we deep dive into our 2 main teams, let's see what is our current situations. So our traditional ways of reaching out to our clients, like what Nesto Cloud usually do, is that they like to reach to the top or the executive level of the managers. And then once we explain our products and executive managers decided they're interested in these products, then they will approve, and then they will allow us to demonstrate our products or services to other stakeholders in the organizations. And once this done, each stakeholders and the executives will just discuss again whether they should buy our technologies or not. So our key takeaway for this thing is that our current sales approach for now is like the top-down approach. But this thing might not work with the large bank, because to be honest, it's really hard or nearly impossible to reach the top executives of the bank, because these people need to do like many kinds of works, need to meet like the clients that have a lot of values. So our key question is that how can we ensure that our message or our products will reaching to the top executive level? And to answer that, we're planning to use our pre-sales teams to focus on communicating our products to the mid-level managers. And the reason is because before we use the top-down method, now we would like to change to the bottom-ups. So we would like to focus on mid-level managers like the mortgage managers, and then we would like to explain our products to them, and if they're interested, then they can report up to the higher level, and in the end, it will reach to the VP. So our execution plan is that first, we need to train our sales teams about the technologies and about our service. Since these people are already good with selling the products, but our sales teams might not really understand into the details or into the structures of our technologies at first. So what we plan to do is that we ensure that they have this knowledge, and then we provide some information on the templates for them to go to our bank clients and then sell it. And in the third steps, after we provide them with the trainings and the resource, we will let our sales teams go reach out the mid-level mortgage bank managers. And once it's done, we will just do some kind of follow-up on the progress of the sales. So since I just mentioned before, if the mid-level banks managers really interest, it will go upwards. So in this first step, we just ensure that does the banks or the organizations or the mid-level bank managers really interested in our products, and if yes, we will just ask them or talk about them like what they want more or what information they want more. So for now, once we already apply our sales teams into the our organizations, we can ensure that we can convey our message to the top executive level managers. But now we would like to moving on to our pro sales teams. But before we deep dive into that part, we need to see like what is our current internal teams. So our teams currently is really small, and our main focus of the Nesto Cloud is on the smaller sides of the financial service providers. So the key thing is that the banks really serious when the problems occurs, right? They want to ensure that when the problems or unexpected thing happens, they can fix it within just immediately or like really fast. Because like every minute that the errors or the systems occurs, it can cost the banks like $1 million. So therefore, we need to provide a specialized team that's solely focused on the bank support solely. And that's why we come up with these post-sales teams, which is the teams that just support the banks. So our post teams will consist of 3 groups of people. The first one is the securities, and this part is just the members who focus on ensure that the problems will not occur, like the system will run well, or the data or the things that really sensitive to the bank doesn't leak. The second is the technologies group of people. In this part is the group of people that will provide the supports when the errors of the systems occurs. The last one is the relation managers, which is really important because it will be the one who communicates between our teams and the customers, like what problems customer face, and then we will just like provide information to our teams, and then we will let our team fix it, and then relation managers will update the progress to the our customers. So now we already done with the strategies. Now I pass the mic to my colleagues to talk more about financials and impact.
Thank you, Chris. So now let's take a look into our impact and implementations. Kickstart with our implementation timeline. So firstly, there are 3 key main actions that Nesto need to be done today. First one is that they need to be able to hire that new team of the sales team that are tailored to the bigger bank. Second is to create the new strategies in terms of who should they engage in the bigger bank. And lastly also is to hire the performance team in terms of to track what are the post-sale things. So let's take a look how does it look like in actual implementations. So within the first half of 2026, we'll be engaging with the new mortgage directors extend from the current executive of the bigger bank. Second, we estimate that we'll be able to acquire this bank within the second half. In parallel, we also gonna do first hire a sales team, then second the hiring monitor teams. With all these actions, by the year of 2027, we estimate that we'll be able to integrate fully these big banks into Nesto product innovations. So next, let's look in terms of our impacts. So with this, we estimate that we would gain up to about 40 million revenue in terms of Canadian dollars, driven by 2 things. The first one is the take rate from the origination fees of around 2.5%. Second would be the conversion rate of customers of around 3%. So with this, we estimate that we will gain up to incremental of 3,800 customers within the 5 years. So in terms of cost, if we have to look deeper, we would see that even if this was implemented, Nesto would be able to still remain at profits. So with this, we have seen the profit would still be highest after the second years that they have the first year to implement the product. But after they have spiked this new with the market trend of the current high refinancing rate, we see that we'll be able to exactly hit the profit within the second years by 2 major drivers of cost. The first one is the team that will be taking care of this new big bank, and second would be the new team that used to both develop the system to integrate under white label, and second one would be the team to develop of our program in the futures. Next, we're moving on in terms of the risk and mitigation. We highlight that the biggest risk would be the fact that we lost some of the as a software as a service. We need the fast in terms of creating a new product. With commercializing to the bigger banks, there might be some hurdle that we are struggling in terms of developing new product due to like laws and regulations. So with this, we plan that we can mitigate it by providing a certain service only within the initial of the Nesto first, therefore we develop it later in the bank. So with this, in other and risk mitigation, we are happy to elaborate it in the Q&A. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. We will now begin a 10-minute Q&A period.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So you you've decided that you were going to target large banks and that you were going to try and onboard one of the big six banks. How do you? I guess, do you think it's a very risky strategy? And considering that there's only 6 of them, do you have a contingency plan in case that big six strategy does not work out in the first year?
Maybe I can take that question first and my colleague can add on more about the contingency and risk and mitigation plan. So we understand that there may be a bigger risk with going for one of the big 6 traditional banks. However, we believe that Nesto Cloud is at an imperative point in its growth as a company where, with the external headwinds mentioned in the situational analysis, an opportunity to capture the 6 big banks right now is more imperative now than ever. And, excuse me, if you could go to one of the appendices. It was also stated from an external source that the CEO of Nesto Cloud was actually looking to get one of the big 6 banks on its platform already, showing that right now, Nesto Cloud is at a point in its growth as a company where they want to move on to something bigger and better, and we believe that this kind of opportunity is something that is completely within their capabilities. And as for the risk and mitigation.
Sure. Okay, in terms of risk, we have estimated, or we have projected this risk. So what we do is that we're not going to only approach one of the bank at a time. We can approach like many of them parallelly. So this would first mitigate the risk if one of the reaching to the 6 bank fail. On the other hand, currently we saw that with the current Nesto, they already deepen their current connection with, for example, the credit bureaus and others of the firm. So aside from while waiting for the turn that we are contacting the 6 of the bank, we can deepen also by getting some of the certain alliances with the smaller financial institution firm within Canada.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Okay. I think throughout the presentation you mentioned the take rate. And please, 2.5% you mentioned?
Yes.
Okay. So do you have what in your financial analysis, what can back up that assumption? So what are your assumptions behind that take rate?
Okay, so first I would like to clarify. So also you want to size that how does that take rate result in the revenue of 40 million, or like what are the backup behind that 2.5%?
So it's what led you to the 2.5%?
Oh, so with that I have researched on the industry standard. So we benchmark with the current fintechs. So the current fintechs, they are gathering around 1 to 5% of the take rate in terms of refinancing, in terms of the market specialties. And then with the current, I saw that some of the Nesto service that they are providing on the rate of 3.49 according to the source that we searched that we are able in the internet. So by that, we are seeing that with the current revenue, it's possible to estimate the rate of around 2.5, that it still would be profit for the company.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you on your last slide, I believe you talked about a 2-speed governance. Can you expand on this one? In the mitigation.
In terms of the first one, right? So firstly, like what we have noticed. So in terms of the bank, for example, if we are to implement a certain new technology, for example, agentic AI, that they need to run through certain of the informations. So according to the regulation, right, there might be certain information that might need a request from the customers in order for the agentic AI to be able to pull the data, right? So with that, if we are to further integrate this model into the bank, it might take a certain time in terms of the certain regulation to allow it. So by that, we are first going to implement it on a smaller firm. According to what we saw on the current website, we saw that Nesto will having around 30 of the customers that are none of the big 6. So with that, we are planning to first integrate this new model in terms of the smaller firm first before we prove it that it was safe and the data security gain a certain reliabilities before we develop it in the bigger banks. This answer your question.
Thank you.
Hi, this is a very specific question. Did you look at what variations in the rate of interest would do for your financial calculations of what's going to happen profitably for Nesto? For example, we would expect that the U.S. discount rate is going to go down over the next year. There's a no-brainer. And in Canada, yes. And in Britain, yes. And in Europe, yes. So how does that affect what's going on?
Okay, so first, So currently, first what we have estimated is, according to case booklet, we saw that the current, if you want to see the 65% over there is the change rate, which we saw that there was a high refinancing in the current market today, so of Canada market alone. So if we have also estimated that in the futures there might be a certain fall, since it's a state that it was a cyclical things, that this certain period that people gonna come refinancing, it will not be for like the whole, this will not happen like for the whole 5 years. So with that, we have to estimate that the rate of people who will be refinancing in Canada will be falling down. As you can see, the current is 65%, it will be falling to 40%, falling to 35%, and 20% within the year of 2030. Is that justified?
Okay, so what about the size of the mortgage? Wouldn't that be more important than what the rate of interest is, which applies to be the same for all mortgage holders? But some mortgages are going to be more expensive than others because it's let's say you're Scotiabank and you have a portfolio of American properties, which is very different from the National Bank, for example, which I don't think has any.
Okay, so first, if with further information we could change up to rate, but the current rate that we use in terms of the average loan size that we are using is according to the source of the case package that the current Nesto have provided. So we are using that average amount of loan size according to what it's the information available. But if future information, we can adapt the model according to the change in the amount of loan size.
Thank you.
Hi. So I have a question in regards to one of your slides when you spoke about not going to the executives, going towards the middle management. I'm curious to understand, why did you choose that approach when middle management usually doesn't understand the operational landscape of like versus a CTO or something? But I would like to understand what was your strategy behind choosing this direction?
So like what we're planning to do is that we're planning to reach out to the middle to a bit of like the high level managers. The reason is because, as I told you before, like for these informations on our products cannot reach directly to the top executives, right? And our traditional way to approach our clients is that we would like to approach the executives. But as I just mentioned to you in the presentations, that it is really nearly impossible to reach those executives. So what we're planning to do is that we're planning to focus on the related managers to the mortgage, which is have like some kind of a little bit of powers, and if they're interested, I mean, they can report up a bit to like the one level highest managers and then go higher.
To add on, sorry.
Would you have considered actually asking the founders of Nesto to get involved in the biz dev department?
Okay, so let's start with the first question first. Why did we decide to come with this approach? So under this approach, actually, on the contrary, people who are related towards using the technology daily would be the people who push the change management back towards the CTO or COO. So if we look, actually, the change managers, despite being the people who sign the contracts, being the COO or CTO, they are not the people who are intact towards these technologies or using it in their daily life. They see the figures, they see the numbers, but they do not see what are the comparative differences between each types of technologies. So under other organizations, smaller size, those under the same roles as directors and change makers or users are the same person because it is smaller in size. However, when compared it back towards the context of the big 6 banks, the people who are responsible in coming up with the solutions are the middle managers. That is why we decided to come up with a strategy that targets more towards the middle managers who are involved in using those technologies directly and also feedbacking up with their subordinates. Like my colleague mentioned, if those rationales are valid, we can escalate it up and suggest it up towards the COO or CTO. But we do not recommend Nesto Cloud or its founder to jump in and make connections with the CTO or COO and just jump in and provide those solutions directly.
I didn't have any
Okay, so slide 33, 34, you talk about skill set training, wholesale, pre-sale. But have you thought about what is the organizational structure of that proposed future organization?
Okay, sure. To make it very quick, actually in Nesto we have the transformation team already. We just want to divide it into more subordinates that are responsible to the task.
Okay.
So unfortunately we have run out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys can get the it's over.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you so
presentation.
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Julian.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Julian. Julian.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Axel, and I will be your timekeeper for the day. Before we continue, I would just like to confirm that this is in fact Team D. I will show you your warning signs when there are 10, 5, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds remaining, like so. Once the 10-second countdown is up, I will say stop, after which the team must stop talking immediately, and afterwards a 10-minute Q&A period will follow. I would like to remind you that all the teams must present for a minimum of 15 minutes, and all team members must speak during the presentation, but not necessarily during the Q&A period. Now, audience members, we please ask that you place your phones on silent mode and remain seated in the room for the duration of the full presentation and Q&A period. I will now let the judges introduce themselves, and once they are done, you may begin your presentation. Off to you, judges.
Yes, hi. Thanks for being here. My name is Youssef, or Air Canada in procurement.
Hi, my name is Julian Chacon. I work for Prawini Canada in procurement.
My name is Bernard Zubey. I work for IG Wealth Management and Strategy.
Hi, my name is Michael Hinton. I'm an independent management consultant.
Hi, I'm Anita Kanan. I am the Vice President and Partner at the Unknown Creative Agency.
Nice to meet you. Ladies and gentlemen, the mortgage market is at the cornerstone of the Canadian financial economy, and it is bound for a digital transformation. So as Nesto, the first ever digital lender of mortgages, the question then becomes, how will you facilitate this upcoming change? Good afternoon, we are Phoenix Consulting. My name is Theo, and I'm joined by my colleagues Rosa, Elias, and Chris, who will now take you through a brief overview.
Thank you, Theo. So let's start by taking a look at the demand for the Canadian mortgage market, which is currently growing at 4.8% through 2030. Now, there's intensifying competition when it comes to mortgages, and specifically, there's increased digitization efforts across different financial institutions. Now, your company, Nesto Cloud, is a fully integrated digital lending platform that offers B2B solutions to other lenders within the industry. Now, you offer flexible delivery models, whether it be the SaaS offering as a tool or the end-to-end integrated mortgage operation option. And today, we're tasked of seeking a strategy to grow Nesto Cloud as an ecosystem growth platform. This leads to the following question that was mentioned in the case. So how should Nesto Cloud successfully grow to become an ecosystem growth platform? Now, we've broken down this question into two key asks, where we first start by detailing the ideal internal structure, as well as the roles and responsibilities to successfully implement any growth strategy. Then, we move on to developing a B2B strategy that addresses the current challenges, as well as a post-sales servicing plan for the client. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very happy to present to you our two-pillar strategy, where we first do internal restructuring, and this is where we establish two product-specific implementation teams, whether it be one for the SaaS tool and the second one for the fully outsourced offering, and it will be supported by a market expert talent pool for rapid hiring and onboarding. And second, when it comes to our B2B marketing and implementation strategy, this is where we develop a three-step standardized marketing outreach strategy to approach clients, but also create partner-level change management processes with them to ensure successful implementation and tackle co-marketing efforts. Now, our strategy will not only achieve your ambitions, but also the following KPIs by 2028. 17.1 million Canadian dollars in incremental revenues, 42.5 thousand mortgage originations captured, and an ROI of 1.5%. And with that, I'll pass it on to Rosa for the analysis.
Thank you, Chris. To answer the two key asks we just broke down, it is very important to take a look at the company's current target customers. If we're able to understand these customers' needs, then we're able to see what internal structure will allow us to satisfy these needs first, and second, what B2B sales strategy is optimal to show the value that we are providing for these customers. Therefore, we took a look at the four key customer segments: banks, credit unions, fintechs, and alternative lenders. We grouped each of these customer segments into two key groups because they have very similar behavioral characteristics. Banks and credit unions together, fintechs and alternative lenders together. And here, we performed a pain point analysis for each customer to see where they're lacking and how we can show them the value we bring to them. For banks and credit unions, we see that the major issue they have first is legacy tech limitations. Because of their current hardcore systems, we're unable to integrate novel technology, which creates a lot of issues. Second, is the fact that the nature of their deals is very long-term. Therefore, they must focus on very strict customer screening. This is very different from fintech and alternative lenders who have very short-term deals on the other hand. Therefore, they have greater turnover, and their focus is not over ensuring adequate screening that much, but rather it's over ensuring that they can balance that high volume. And finally, we can see that within banks and credit unions, the regulatory landscape is quite static. However, it is very stringent. Therefore, their focus is on ensuring adequate regulatory compliance from a static but very stringent perspective. On the other hand, for fintechs and alternative lenders, the regulatory landscape is very, very dynamic. Therefore, they must ensure that they are agile and they can adequately and rapidly evolve to ensure that they can catch up to emerging regulations. Therefore, here there's one major takeaway. It's the fact that your customer segments have very different pain points and they are very unique. Therefore, in your future strategy, you must not only focus on catering to these specific pain points, but accepting the fact that your customer segments have very unique pain points that cannot be targeted through a unified approach. Now, keeping this in mind, we also understand that we must look internally at your current products, your current offerings, and see what they offer for each customer. Here, the main focus was on looking at challenges that limit adoption of your offerings. For the software as a service model, we can see the legacy systems challenge, which was already highlighted. Second, there's the fact that to effectively integrate the software as a service model, you must ensure that the personnel of the company is very well trained. This is another barrier to implementation. Then, there's the fact that you must ensure on-ground workflow analysis. That means not only taking the word of upper management, but actually seeing what's happening on the ground. And this is a very different approach from what is currently happening. And finally, it's ensuring regulatory compliance to retain lender ownership of data. On the other hand, for end-to-end offering adoption, we can see that the pain points are quite different. First, there's data privacy and security concerns that slow adoption in general. There's the fact that the HR focus is very different because here you don't need to focus on the company's internal personnel, but rather you need to be able to ensure that you can handle the workflow in-house. Then there's the build versus buy dilemma, and that leads to limited adoption and unclear long-term ROI. Therefore, customers do not know what they can expect on the long term, and that limits adoption as well. And finally, customer data requirements are usually poor and are mismatch your current data infrastructure, which also creates a key adoption challenge. Therefore, all of these adoption pain points lead to one major outcome. Each of your offerings also has different pain points. Therefore, a unified approach is also not the optimal way to go. You must look into a more targeted approach, which is where we recommend shifting towards a product-based internal structure. Currently, you have one major workflow that focuses on targeting the upper management and also the regulatory and tech compliance teams. Now, we want you to have a product-based internal structure where we have two separate teams for each product because each product has its very own adoption challenges. And since customers are scattered across both products, so banks can have one or the other, and same thing for the alternative lenders, you must focus on a product-based approach rather than a customer-based segmentation, which would also increase complexity in operations. And knowing this and keeping this in mind, I'll pass it on to my colleague Elias for our strategy.
Alrighty, thank you, Rosa. And I'm happy to introduce our strategy, where we first have an internal restructure, and second, a B2B marketing and implementation campaign. So within the first pillar, we'd like to establish two product-specific implementation teams, first software as a service and fully outsourced offerings. And then we would support these teams with a market expert talent pool for rapid hiring and specialist industry insights. Within the second pillar, we'd establish a three-step standardized B2B marketing approach and create a partner-level change management process with co-marketing efforts. So let's dive into the first pillar, internal restructure, where we again would like to create two specific product specialist teams. Now, what exactly is a product specialist team? It's a specialized customer-facing group within your internal structure, responsible for installing, configuring, and deploying Nesto Cloud-specific products. They would have product-focused knowledge ranging from onboarding, technical expertise, and training regarding their specific product, whether it be software as a service or the full offering. So why exactly is it needed? As mentioned by Rosa, you have fragmented responsibilities across your different product lines, which increases your operational complexity and reduces your ability to grow in the long term. And this has been seen in an industry proof case of McKinsey Digital, where they've implemented this internal structure to ensure their growth and scalability. Now, what exactly would be the two teams? First of all, a software as a service specialist team that would be created and designed to target the specific pain points that clients typically face within the implementation of SAS. The needed positions within this team would be a large cloud integration architect division to really remove the complex legacy systems that create problems within integration. Second, broker-specific on-site training to support the training of the partners' broker teams. And finally, a specific company pre-implementation operations mapping to really understand where the software as a service can be integrated into the operations to ensure maximum success. Now, the second team would be the fully outsourced specialist team. This team would be specialized in the implementation of this outsourced product and again targeted at the pain points mentioned by Rosa. Needed positions would be a large data cleaning and mismatch engineer division to ensure that they can clean the data and enter it within our white label product. Then there would be a specialized cybersecurity division to really ensure that throughout the whole value chain of your product offering, there is data security, reducing the fear of owners for their data and of banks for the data that they provide to you. And finally, you'd have continuous partner sales support to really showcase to these partners how big the ROI is of using your product offering. Great, so now that we've created these product-specific teams, the next angle is really understanding how this looks from a market-specific perspective. And this is where we'd like to develop market expert talent pool for specific product teams that they can then draw from to get that market insight. So what exactly is an expert talent pool? It's a curated database of highly skilled, pre-qualified individuals that are employees within your existing company and that have specific industry roles and insights that they can then provide to you. This would be enabled on your internal staffing platform so that any product manager can then introduce these individuals directly onto their product workflow, and has been proved by the Flex program at Unilever. So why is it needed? Again, our analysis has shown that you have specific problems that are market specific and that cannot be targeted with one singular team. And now how exactly would it work in terms of implementation? First, this product manager would have access to the internal platform to look at the vast number of employees that they can choose from. Then they would filter in accordance to the role that they need to support their existing project and the industry expertise that they would need. So for example, they need a tech expert within the fintech space. They're able to access them directly, introduce them into their product implementation workflow to streamline that growth and implementation. And finally, you'd onboard them quite easily as well. And this would in turn first drive rapid access to talent and decrease time to hire by around 15% for all your implementation. Then it would lower the cost per hire if you try it, where in-house talent will be cheaper in the long run than hiring industry specialists every time you have an implementation project. And finally, it would increase the quality of your employees as these are pre-screened over the long run rather than during a short duration. Great. Now I'm happy to pass the floor to Chris.
Thanks, Elias. So now that we have internally restructured the company to allow growth, where does this growth actually happen and how does it look? So let's talk about the three-step approach that we're going for B2B marketing, where each product specialist team, the SaaS team, as well as the end-to-end offering team, will follow a three-step approach, where they first, rather than having generic marketing, we want to have account-based marketing, where they identify, understand, but also form a team for that specific client. So before outreaching to the client, it's important to understand them, understand what their pain points are, and this is the responsibility of those teams. After understanding the team, they will be able to after understanding the client, they'll be able to form the team using the platform that was previously outlined. So whether that client is facing regulatory pain points, this is where you leverage that talent pool to have someone on board from regulatory backgrounds. Once you've understood the client, it's time to outreach. This is our second step, where you outreach to the client just like you usually do. However, this is where we go a step further and show tailored value to the client, and I'll happily deep dive into that next. Finally, this is where you transition to post-sales support. The journey does not end here at providing an outreach and tailored value. It's also about creating change management activities within that client's ecosystem and also supporting them with co-marketing. Now let's take this one step at a time and dive into the outreach and tailored value. Now, once the team has been formed for that client and it's time to actually acquire them, let's go back to what their pain points could be. As my colleague Rosa previously mentioned, you have various pain points, whether legacy systems or the ability to have regulatory compliance or even agility in the market. So each client will need something and will need to see it firsthand. And this is now that you have dedicated teams, you're able to understand what that client needs and you're able to show it to them through value demonstrations. So rather than showing general statistics, because you have that dedicated team that's formed for them, you're able to acquire them and have them convert much more fast. Next, the transition to post-sales support. Now we've identified 2 levers to ensure implementation and to ensure that the platform keeps being used after it is sold. The first one is the change management activities. Now, we have developed 2 change management activities and initiatives that we want you to roll out. First is the champions of change. We want you to assign within each client that you face influential employees that will support, promote, and facilitate the switch from the top-down level. Now, you'll be appointing the employees that are champions across the different areas, whether it be the executive that you first outreach to, the head of mortgages, or the technology champion that you prove the capabilities to, or the risk team champion that knows the security of your platform, or the operational team champion that even knows the benefits. So those are people that firsthand experience the platform. Now give them the role of a champion for them to spread the word. Now what exactly are their responsibilities? They'll be first advocating for change and promoting the benefits of the platform to their respective teams. They'll be providing support and onboarding to the other employees, because not everyone was in the first time. And finally, they'll be gathering feedback and identifying resistance to further support implementation. The second initiative under change management is employee-specific understanding. So using the platform that you have, a small tweak will be able to create employee profiles. And once you understand the usage rate of employees, you'll be able to segment the workforce of each client based on what they need in terms of training. So you'll be able to have a tailored training curriculum, whether an employee needs support on technical and cloud-specific training, or maybe they just need security and compliance training. So rather than having a generic training for the whole company that can incur high capex and not really show any results, it's more about understanding the employee firsthand, gathering the data that you have, and providing tailored solution and training for them. Now, you've done the change management activities. What's remaining is supporting your clients with co-marketing. This is where we understand that the client does not necessarily understand the benefits of your platform firsthand, especially when it's newly integrated. And their marketing team will not be able to convey the message of what's actually going on. This is why a cross-functional marketing team comes in. Some marketing employees from your team will closely work with employees from their company to create co-marketing opportunities, also support the on-site employees of marketing to have better communication, and this will increase client retention on the long term. And with that, I'll pass it on to Theo for the impact.
Thank you, Chris. So our strategy is implementable over the next 3 years with 3 key milestones that we want you to keep in mind. First, it's about hiring those product-specific teams and creating the platform that will help facilitate that employee matching program that will really take your product to the next level. Second, we must create those employee profiles on that customer platform to effectively facilitate those tailored trainings. So if an employee has specialization in one area, we know which product he can be effectively tailored to get maximum results. And lastly, it's developing those cross-functional marketing campaigns. This is the value added that we're giving your customers so that they can retain with us for longer than just a sales cycle that we outlined. So the cost that your company must incur to bring this strategy to life come out to around 6.8 million Canadian dollars over the next 3 years. They're facilitated by 3 key drivers. First, it's your hiring costs, both internally and externally. Second, it's the platform development costs of the Insights platform that will match employees to certain projects. And lastly, it's those training costs, where we assign champions, we give incentives, so on and so forth. We've taken 2 key assumptions in mind. First, that a Scrum team composed of developers, UI designers, product owners, and Scrum Masters will, in an agile manner, effectively develop this platform such that you don't incur any incremental redundant costs, and they'll incur around 25 sprints per year. Second, we've benchmarked training and marketing respectively at around 2.17% and 3% of incremental software service revenues. But what we're all here for is the revenues, which come out to around 17.1 million Canadian dollars within just the same time frame, with 3 key drivers to keep in mind. First, it's about outreach across the 4 main financial areas with the big 6 banks, the credit unions, the alternative lenders, and the fintechs, who generate a total loan origination of around 330 billion Canadian dollars. Once we have this overall market, we then start to convert them. So we took an average conversion rate of around 1.5%, which is standard to the mortgage lending industry, and we upscaled or downscaled it based on which segment those companies lie within. And then lastly, we convert to actual revenues, where we have a mortgage size per customer of around $409,000 and an average take rate within Nesto of 0.08%. And lastly, we've marked up your implementation fees for those post-sale services by 5% annually, which we benchmarked with the McKinsey report from 2022. So, we've also considered various risks, which range from internal hesitancy of these companies all the way to data privacy and compliance with Canadian laws, and we've developed tailored mitigation plans for these risks. Just to name a few, we have sales support such that these industry and product teams will be on the ground consistently to make sure that any needs internally are effectively addressed. And we can look at the bottom towards compliance, where we make sure that our strategy is fully compliant with Canadian PIPE laws regarding our data collection practices. So when taking a step back, our strategy will effectively address the two key asks of the case to transform your platform into a true growth ecosystem. And in doing so, you can achieve the following three KPIs by 2028. First, 17.1 million Canadian dollars in incremental revenues. Second, 42,500 mortgage originations that your company can capture. And lastly, a 3-year ROI of 1.5x. So the industry is changing. There's digital transformation about. What are you going to do about it? We thank you for your time, and we'll open the floor for any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll now begin a 10-minute Q&A period.
Thank you. I'll start. Thank you very much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. You've captured the customer segmentation pretty well, between legacy banks and credit unions, fintechs, etc. So I know that you said that you were going to be product-based, so your teams will be more, in tune with the product rather than the customers. But walk me through how it would work to sell to these different customer segments, since they have wildly different structures and different, processes.
Yes, sir. Of course. So if you can go to the first pillar. Great. So you have the product-specific team at the base, right? And this product team knows about your software as a service model. They know about the fully outsourced, depending on which one they are. They have the basic knowledge of implementing these product lines. However, if you are tailoring it to, let's say, fintech or traditional banks or credit unions and so on, that is where the next step of the first pillar comes in, which is the market talent pool. So you'd go to this internal staffing platform, and you select the specific roles and responsibilities that you need on your team to ensure that you can actively tailor your implementation for that market, and you can choose the specific market that you want to have a employee tailored for. So the product manager of this product specialist team would go on this platform. Then they would filter in accordance to the type of individual they need to support their sales strategy, support their implementation for that market segment, and then through the platform, this employee would then be onboarded into the product workflow to ensure that quick turnaround, and to ensure, of course, as you were saying, so that they can target the specific pain points and the specific needs of that specific market segment, of that specific customer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. If you go to the financials where you were talking about take rate, and I believe you came up with a number 0.08%. Can you please explain how you came up with that?
Sure. So we're going to kind of see how I got to the take rate. It's quite simple. So we were given a lot of financials within the case about your software service revenues, your implementation fees, kind of a segmentation of how your company makes money. Quite simply, we wanted to see what is your overall software service volume and revenues. And so as a percentage of the overall volume, which stands at around 37.1 billion, and you're expecting that to grow to 49.7 billion within the case, we then looked at how much of those revenues you estimated to actually get from this overall funding volume. And quite simply, if we divide those two numbers, we get around 0.08% with respect to the software service revenues. And that's the number that we ran with since it was provided to us in the case.
Okay, and a follow-up on that 5%. You mentioned a 5% growth of that year over year.
So I can take you through that just for a second. It's quite brief. So we have those implementation fees that you've mentioned, but they're quite variable year to year. So in the first year in 2026, it was around 6 million or 7 million, and that grew rapidly to around 11 to 12 million. So what we did to kind of standardize those numbers is just took an average between the two. It came out to around 11.5 million. That's the baseline that we stuck with. And then a McKinsey report specified that your companies can realize a 5 to 15% saving on or increase on implementation fees with training initiatives such as training, tiering, co-branding, and whatnot. And so that's how we got those implementation fee markups that we talked about in the strategy.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. I won't ask a question about numbers. Okay. I've never been very good with numbers. That's my wife. Okay. But the basic question I have is I found it very, very intriguing the way you broke down the market. So you have 4 different types in which 2 they're both paired up. Where did you come up with that idea? That's a very interesting way of looking at it.
So the idea here was to look at these customers' pain points, and when we're looking at the different pain points that they face in their management of mortgages, we saw that they're very similar. So banks and credit unions they operate in the more traditional side of the industry overall. Here, regulations are quite static. The deals are quite long-term in general, and legacy tech remains a key major issue. So we're able to group them together because of the fact that their pain points are quite similar, and their operating models are also quite similar. Whereas for fintech and alternative lenders, they're in a very emerging, dynamic market. So because their pain points are also within the same vicinity, we decided to group them together as well in our analysis.
I guess I haven't thought it through, but it would just seem to me that your product-centric approach to skills would map out with these, that they'd be a lot easier to work with the banks and credit unions than with the fintechs and alternative lenders.
Yeah.
So in terms of the actual cost of working, I would think would be much higher. Very difficult to press a button and make it happen, whereas with these guys.
And I think our strategy really tries to target that. Given that you have that existing product specialist team, and then you add on top of it market experts. So as these 2 segments, fintech and alternative lending, grows in the long term, you can then complement your product-specific teams with industry experts to really capture value here. So you can design teams, product-specific teams, that can focus on banks and credit unions in the short term, given that it's easily accessible and not as high capex. And then in the long run, as these 2 sectors grow, you can really tap into that and expand with them.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Great job, first off. So clearly you're going after all 4 sectors. That's very clear. You did mention that now because you're more product specialized, you're going to have quite a heavy, well, we saw it's quite a heavy internal hiring structure that you're proposing. Knowing that and knowing that you don't have any, it's going to cost you a lot from an operational perspective to hire such a big team and such specialized. Did you take that into consideration, specifically knowing that you have not yet signed any of these sectors yet?
I can take that question. So I'm going to take you to the appendix slide where we kind of sized the cost that we'd incur. It's not working now, but I'll run you through it. So pretty much the idea is we wanted to look at the number of mortgages that we could capture through these new originations within Canada, and as a percentage of that overall number of originations, how many people we need to hire to accommodate for those originations. So what's nice about it is that if mortgages decrease within Canada for whatever reason, economic fluctuation or whatnot, we would hire with respect to how much we need. So if we go one slide, a couple slides down, one more after that. Okay, so this is kind of how we break it down. So the new mortgages converted are at the top, and we kind of benchmarked how many mortgages can kind of be handled by a team of compliance officers, data analysts, and banking analysts. This is not a comprehensive team, just to specify. There are many more positions that we'd hire, but these are kind of a summation of what they would kind of handle. Then, based on the number of originations that they would be able to handle, we'd hire them in tangent to that. We've taken an average salary, which is Montreal specific, for each position that we're hiring, and that would be our total external hiring costs. What we also know is that we're allocating some internal members of the team to such projects. So we took the average annual salary of an employee and took it as an opportunity cost for working within a new project, whereas they could have been doing something else. And so these 2 levers kind of lead to that overall hiring cost number that you see at the bottom.
So external hirings, you will be very strong in 2026, right? And can you show me again your revenue?
Sure.
I saw 17 million.
Yeah.
Yep. So the 17 million was on top of the existing revenues?
Yes.
By which year?
By 2028.
By 2028.
Right. So the baseline for that was that in the case, they very clearly outlined the estimates that your company expects.
So in 2026, you expected a $17.1 million in revenues. Then you expected that to grow very aggressively to 29 million, and then kind of stabilize to 29.8 million. So that's the benchmark that we ran with for all of the numbers that we had. Then we're adding on to that what you see at the bottom. So 1.6 million in 2026, a relatively conservative number, and then that grows as the number of originations grow, and we start to capture some of that in all 4 sectors that we mentioned. And so these are made up of our take rate from these originations and the implementation markup that I ran through previously.
And do you have the cost? Like, can you, what's my EBITDA on this?
Okay, so if you can go to the cost, actually to the last slide of the cost, we have an ROI metric. So we looked at what are our overall costs on Scrum teams, training, cross-functional marketing teams, and hiring. I don't want to keep going. If we go up here, this is our ROI kind of metric. So we look at our overall revenues. Our costs come out to 6.8 million, and so if we find an ROI, it's around 1.49 times. We've also looked at this from a top-down approach. We know that the SAS average return on investment is around 200%, so it's quite aggressive, and so we think it's in line with what we've estimated for your strategy.
So 2028 as well?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we do not have any more time for another question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Likewise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.